Hey guys, and welcome back to another coaching video. I get so many questions about supplements, in particular protein powder and creatine. So I thought I would run you through a few key considerations to look out for when you are choosing them or using them. Let's start off with protein powder. The protein powder that I recommend you use is Whey Protein Isolate. Whey Protein Isolate is just isolated from dairy. So the protein is taken out of the dairy and most of the carbohydrate and fat is removed. I mainly recommend to use this either post-workout as an easy protein-rich snack or using it as a protein boost to meals, such as adding to smoothies or adding to your breakfast in the morning, mixed in with oats or something like that. Whey Protein Isolate and Whey Protein Concentrate are different. When you're looking out for a protein powder, if it does just say protein on the front of the packet, make sure you actually read the back of it. Generally, if it's Whey Protein Isolate, it will flag this on the front because it's more expensive and it's more pure. If there is a brand that's mixed together Whey Protein Isolate, Whey Protein Concentrate, and another form of protein, it'll probably just say protein blend on the front or it'll just say protein powder. So look out for the WPI because this is higher quality. It's actually filtered twice, unlike WPC. It's more pure and more of the extra stuff has been removed, leaving a higher quality protein source. Vegan and raw proteins are different altogether because obviously they're not isolated from dairy if they're vegan. A really important consideration to keep in mind when choosing protein powders is leucine. Leucine is just an amino acid, and proteins are made up of lots of different types of amino acids put together. Leucine is important, however, because this is what stimulates muscle protein synthesis, meaning muscle building or muscle repair. Every time we exercise, we do break down our muscle fibers, and it's really important to trigger muscle repair as soon as you finish exercising, which can be done by eating 3 grams of leucine in one go. This is where vegan proteins and WPIs differ. WPIs are pretty much guaranteed to have 3 grams and over of leucine. Generally, they'll be around the 3.5 mark per serve. However, vegan proteins will be around 1.5 to 2.5 grams per serve as a general rule of thumb. When we're just looking at the nutrition panel as a whole and looking at the grams of protein, fat, and carbohydrate, all proteins look fairly similar, but the amino acid profile is where it differs when you're looking at proteins from different sources. Like I mentioned before, WPI is isolated from dairy, which is really high in leucine, whereas vegan protein powders can be from pea or rice or pumpkin or soy, and the amino acid profile will differ. So keep that in mind when you're choosing your protein. I've just got a demonstration here of how much food you'd have to get enough leucine from a whole food item instead of from a protein shake. Up the top here, we can see milk. So you need 600 mils, which gives you 22 grams of protein. And of that protein, you'll be getting 3 grams of leucine. You don't have to know this stuff. It's just to give you a bit of context of which foods are high in it and which foods are low in it. Whey protein isolate is here. To get 3 grams of leucine, you only need to have 17 grams of protein powder. That is much more efficient than trying to have 400 grams of yogurt or 400 grams of tofu or 350 grams of kidney beans. I'll let you go over this in your own time if you're interested, instead of making you listen to me talk about each one. Just to show you a little bit of a comparison between WPC and WPI, remembering both of these are isolated from dairy, WPI is just filtered twice to remove more of the fats and carbohydrates. I've got both nutrition panels here, so you can see the quantity per serving and per 100 grams. We'll just focus on per serving because you're going to have 1 serve after your workout. You're not going to have 100 grams. These are both the same brand, by the way. I just took this straight off the website. Looking at the WPC, we can see per serve, and the serve is 30 grams. You get 22.3 grams of protein. If you look at the WPI, you get 25.5 grams per serve. It's always important as well when you are comparing the back to make sure the serving size is the same, because lots of lean proteins and proteins that are aimed at shred and burn and those kind of things, they're only going to be about 20 or 25 grams per serving. so that they can show on the label per serving it's lower calorie than another product that's got a bigger serving size. So always keep that in mind. Generally, you're always wanting to have about 30 grams post-workout so you can get 25 grams of protein in. Fat in the WPC is a little bit higher as well, 1.9 grams. Fat's a bit lower in the WPI at 0.5. Carbohydrate in WPI is 1.2, and carbs up here is 2.8. So 1 or 2 grams difference in the carbohydrate. It's not hugely significant, but WPI is better quality. If you're wanting to compare this to plant-based or vegan proteins, you can have a look and see it's quite similar to the WPC in that the protein's about 25 grams per 30 gram serving size, 1.8 fats, 1.8 carbs. But like I said, this hasn't detailed for you the amino acid profile, so we'll look at that in more detail now. Here's an example of a protein where I could find the full amino acid profile for. It's got pea protein, brown rice protein, and pumpkin protein all blended together. And if we look at the amino acid profile, again, we're going to look per 30 grams because you're only going to be having 30 grams post-workout. Looking at the leucine, you can see it's 2.5 grams. So it does fall just short of that minimum amount of leucine needed to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. In comparison to WPI, we can see here in the ingredients, it's pretty much 100% WPI. Looking at the amino acid profile, if we go down to leucine, we can see there's 3.4 grams per 30 gram serving. So this is about a gram higher, and it passes that threshold to start stimulating muscle protein synthesis. That's basically it for protein powder and the things that I want you to think about, and hopefully it makes sense why I've flagged those things. So the purity, remembering that WPI is the most pure, it will have the most amount of protein in it and the less fats and carbohydrates. Considering the amino acid profile, specifically the leucine and the amount of leucine you're getting. The cost, because the higher quality protein powders will probably be more expensive. So you do have to find a balance between what you're happy to pay if you're having it every day and how good the quality is. Your taste preference, the convenience, and I'll just mention here, I don't have a recommended brand. Pretty much any WPI is going to be okay. So please have a look and discern that for yourself. Okay, now we're going to talk about creatine and why this comes in so handy for exercise. This is mainly for exercise coaching clients or for clients who are already doing some sort of gym training or cardio training. Creatine monohydrate is a supplement that comes in a powder form. We already have creatine in our bodies and we store it to some extent in our muscles. Supplementing with creatine monohydrate helps top up these muscle stores and gives us a higher availability of creatine for use during exercise. Basically, what creatine does is it helps supply more energy to feed into our ATP energy system, which then in turn improves our muscles' ability to contract repetitively and again and harder and faster. We have improved sports performance because of this, and we have better results. You can't just take creatine and expect this to have a really good effect in your muscles. You do have to do the work as well, but creatine helps you to do the work. I'll explain the science behind this so you can understand a bit more exactly how creatine assists. If you want the short version is just that creatine helps provide creatine phosphate to feed into an energy cycle which we use for training. But I'll go into the long version here so you can understand it to the deeper level if you like. We have something called the ATP energy cycle. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. That sounds quite intimidating at first glance, but adenosine is basically just a big molecule. You can ignore this little molecule here, that's a ribose group, and a triphosphate. Tri meaning 3. So 3 lots of phosphate, and this is all stuck together. Our body uses this for everything we do. We don't directly burn carbohydrates or directly burn fats or directly burn protein. What happens is our body feeds food into energy cycles that produce ATP. Our ATP is then used to do everything else. When ATP is broken down into ADP, meaning adenosine diphosphate. And remember that di means two, one phosphate group is taken off. This releases the stored energy that are in these bonds here, which we then use for anything else. For example, bench press, or running, or talking, or breathing, or whatever it might be. To release energy for use for those things, our body breaks down ATP into ADP. So we pull off this phosphate group here, and that releases energy. We actually use our body weight of ATP every single day. Instead of vanishing into nothing, our bodies have a really clever way of reusing ATP and ADP in a constant cycle. After we've broken down ATP into ADP, the body just needs to add one of these groups back on there to make that whole molecule again so we can use it again, because we use it again and again and again. Each molecule of ATP is used around 1,000 to 1,500 times a day. So it's just a constant cycle. Here it is in detail. Please don't be intimidated by the molecule pictures. I'll talk you through what we just went over so it makes sense. We have ATP. For this to be used and release energy, our body pops off one of these phosphate groups, releasing energy, leaving ADP because we have adenosine still and two phosphates. To get back to ATP, we have to add a new phosphate back on there. Actually quite simple when you think about it like that. So basically just flicks backwards and forwards between ATP and ADP. The thing that supplies this phosphate group is creatine phosphate. That's why it helps to supplement with creatine monohydrate. We're topping up our creatine phosphate stores, and then these go into that energy cycle. Not so complex when you break it down. My recommendations are to take it daily as per the label, just 1 scoop per day. It's really easy to just mix this in with your protein shake if you have a protein shake every single day. I don't have a recommended brand. Just get any creatine monohydrate. You will also notice a slight scale weight increase due to water. Creatine monohydrate is stored with water in the muscle. This makes you heavier on the scales, so don't freak out if you jump on the scales and you're half a kilo or 2 kilos heavier in the week that you start taking creatine monohydrate. Hopefully that's cleared up a bit of the mystery around supplements and given you some stuff to think about in regards of what to look out for when choosing them and also how to use them. But please reach out if you have any more questions about these.